All right, cool. Welcome, everyone. I'm Mike,
And I'm Brian.
and this is what got our attention.
This is the show where we talk about those news articles that made it past our short attention span syndrome that we have, or SAS.
Very true. But enough talk right now. We have a lot of things to cover today, a lot of hot topics out there. So we're going to kind of jump right into it.
Yeah, and the first topic, before I really get into it, just a little bit of real talk. This first topic, is a bummer and it's something that we wanted to talk about. But I want it to be known that we understand it's not the worst news that's out there. There are a lot of big things going on, a lot of disgusting things that people are out there doing between, racism and sexism and sexual assault. And I don't want anybody to think that we think this topic is more important than those. We just simply think that we may not be the best ones to carry on a discourse with that. I highly encourage people to go out and look up information about that, look at the people that have been affected and
Do
see what
your
they're
research.
saying. Do your research and make your opinions based off of that. And actually, some of it is actually going to come up in this first topic, because something that kind of hit where closer to what we do and what we know is that Mixer, which is used to be Beam.pro, a streaming service that Microsoft bought. Mixer suddenly shut down this last week. And yeah, it's like, bye. And yeah, you laugh. And it was actually even Dr. Disrespect sat there and some guy was making jokes about it. And I mean, I know you're laughing not because it's funny, but because it breaks the tension. But somebody was making jokes about it. And Dr. Disrespect said, hey, this is real. There's people's livelihoods are involved. People got laid off. Jobs are involved. Definitely not something to laugh about. Not that
Especially in a time like right now where we're already kind of in a state of people losing jobs due to the COVID pandemic. So yeah,
Yes.
definitely I can agree with that. It's not something that we would say is a funny topic or anything. It is really people's lives. That's their livelihood. It's their work. That's their income. Even if it is
Yeah.
streaming or not.
And the way this came about was extremely sudden, at least for the partners. The partners were given zero notice. A lot of partners were actually midstream, while all of a sudden somebody in their chat or a moderator or someone said, hey, did you hear about this? You're like, Mixer shut down. And they're like, aha, yeah, you're joking. And they're like, no, wait, send me the link. And then
No,
just
seriously.
they stopped their streams to talk about this because it was just like they had no notice. Pretty much the only people that probably had notice were Ninja and Shroud. Come back to them a little bit later.
Yeah, there was
But
a streamer that I'm not going to promote any streamer names or anything, but I was watching one live after the announcement had been made, and they had changed their background to purple
yeah,
and tried to like promote themselves to get on the front page of Mixer just to kind of show how they felt.
yeah. And even worse, Mixer decided that the way they make this announcement was with a tweet. They tweeted this out.
Come on.
That's how hundreds of partners who are essentially contractors, from my understanding, found out that they were going to be out of a job in about a month.
That is not the
Here's
platform to do this. Like that.
right.
Why can't people understand that Twitch or not Twitch, Twitter is not the way to tell actual news or I give an actual headline to address a community on the scale of this at least. I'm sure there's other
Well,
people out there that use it as well.
maybe it's okay to like address the community, but
Right.
certainly it's not a good way to address the partners. And I kind of get it that this was going to be a big thing, a big deal shutting this down. So I understand why. No, I don't. I mean, yeah, they could have told their partners ahead of time, and yes, the partners would have leaked it. Absolutely 100%. But
Right.
they should have had a meeting with their partners and then immediately made the announcement after that meeting, but at least told the partners first. But instead, they send out this tweet. It's like, hey, we're deciding to close Operation Size and Mixer. We're officially partnering with Facebook Gaming. That's going to be, there's a lot of interesting ramifications there. Cordially inviting you all to join. Starting today, Facebook Gaming will make it easier to move over. They're going to try to make it so they can keep their partner status so that their contracts will be very similar.
Right.
But in all reality, there's some concerns with that.
Imagine
And
going to work and noticing today you get an announcement that Facebook just bought your company. Oh
well,
man.
not only that, these people are like, no, I keep my streaming life separate from my family life, and I don't want people on Facebook that know me to, because if I stream on Facebook, it's going to be tied to my Facebook account.
Exactly.
And that's just the people they know. There's also the privacy concerns of like how many times, especially, and again, here's where some of the sexism comes in sexual assault for that matter. How many times have streamers, especially female streamers, been stalked because of people are like doxing them and finding out where they are? Well, this is the ultimate dox
Right.
because now
There'd
your
be no
Facebook,
wall.
yeah, your Facebook account's tied to it, or you have to create an entirely new Facebook account and keep that separate just for the streaming.
And
It's a
also pay
difficult
for
thing.
a separate account to also hold your streaming.
Yeah, and while this is news that they shut down, this has obviously been in the works for a while because they've been working with Facebook on this. But uh, all the streamers and affiliates and partners were very upset about this because they were trying to make positive change in Mixer. And I don't just mean like increasing the community. Of course, they're trying to do that. But I mean, there are problems with Mixer that they were trying to fix. And while this isn't necessarily an example of it, looking at some of the articles, there was, accusations of, sexual assault that had come out, and you know, Mixer was going to be looking into that, and whether that, I didn't, I wasn't able to see enough information in the past of where some of these had happened, but goodness knows, not only within the corporation itself, but like any streaming company, they're throwing streaming parties. So, things possibly, could have happened there. But more specific information was an excellent thing that I recommend people go out and read the entire thing. And there's actually a full thread on Twitter. There's other places you can find it, but it's Mixer, the Black Experience. This came out about 2 days before the announcement. So obviously the announcement wasn't because of this.
Right.
The whole change of hands, of moving, shut down Mixer and allowing people to move to Facebook obviously was a business decision made long before this. But this article was very sobering about someone who actually worked for Mixer, not a partner, not a contractor, somebody who worked for the corporation and witnessed things that were very disturbing. They always talk about the stream corporations not caring that much about their streamers, except for maybe their big whales.
Right. Their
And
shrouds and their ninjas.
yeah, exactly. Which they've been on several and they're going to others. But this person was actually in a meeting when a manager used an analogy that said all the content creators are like our slaves and we own all their content. And
Wow.
then couldn't understand how that was like a racist comment. Now, again, this is, from an article from the person who had left. It's the information coming from them. They had apparently, tried to talk to management about it, and then they were either complacent or turned a blind eye to it, in theory, and even got to a point where this person had talked to HR, and the HR was surprised by this because no one had told them anything about it. So it looks like the problems in Mixer were a lot deeper than a lot of people realize.
That's a good, interesting thing to bring up, though. The content being like their slaves, quote unquote. Because the issue with a lot of them leaving Twitch originally, like Shroud, the ninja, and then also the contracts that were brought up with Dr. Disrespect and others, is the fact
Mm-hmm.
that the partnership clause they have, the terms of agreement that they have, terms of service for partnerships and affiliates, is basically they own all of your content, and there's nothing you
And
can do about it.
exclusivity.
Right,
And
and
exclusivity where you're not
correct.
allowed to stream on something else and you're not allowed to use your character somewhere else. And
Right.
that's why Ninja had left.
And that's, yeah,
Quit.
exactly. They'd left and to try to build off something new, which is Mixer, and with that
Mm-hmm.
they were able to get far. And now they basically have nothing, and they've built their brand the whole way. And now they're having to either go to Facebook Gaming, which is something that a lot of people are against because of the fact that the identity issue that they have, and then the other side of it is go back to, tuck your tail and go back to Twitch and hope that they're going to try to give you something for it, because initially they weren't
Yeah.
giving any money out until recently, until like Dr. Disrespect and like a couple other streamers, they had basically pushed Twitch into, hey man, like we should have some kind of money agreement for that. But what's crazy
Yeah.
on that is not like, if you look at the top streamers right now, if you go to the page right now, top streamers, most likely none of these are the ones you've probably even heard about, the ones that are getting the most views. But these people have no contracts. Whereas you have some people who, like,
Mm-hmm.
Doctor, he's definitely well known, but it's not like the top people all the time, and he has a contract. So what's the difference between them having a contract or not having a contract and Doctor Disrespect having a contract? There's not really a defined line of what determines who gets paid and who doesn't. Especially with having
Absolutely.
Shroud and Ninja now available, maybe wanting to come back to Twitch. I mean, I'm sure at the end of the day, are they going to probably get paid by Twitch? Most likely, but it's going to be probably not a deal that they're wanting to deal with.
Yeah, and it's and we talk about Ninja and Shroud a little bit there in Doctor Disrespect, but I mean it's the regular partners that are hurt the most because
Right.
they don't have as big viewership, and they have to yes, some of their viewership will follow them along. Absolutely, especially since Mixer's completely shutting down and they don't have a choice to watch Mixer anymore. But there's absolutely people that follow somebody, but if they leave the platform, they would much rather just stay with the platform.
Right.
Um, and the platform is big, at least for Twitch. Um, Live streaming has had a almost 100% growth in viewed hours in year over year from April to April.
I can believe it.
100% growth. And Twitch saw a 98% year over year growth. YouTube gaming saw 65%. Facebook gaming saw 238% from 86 million hours watched to 291 million hours watched. And I always thought Mixer was up there, but they were nearly dead last because they only had 37, like April 2019, they were less than half the size of Facebook gaming.
Right.
And
Which
they
is something
saw
nobody even heard about. So it's
and they
crazy.
saw a 0.2% growth, functionally 0% growth over the year to year. While everybody else was seeing record numbers of growth, they saw 0% growth. So that just shows that there was something going on at Mixer that's much deeper than what we've heard or seen, that they couldn't get it together, even with doing things like buying out Ninja and Shroud. They still functionally saw 0% growth. And that's with a lot of the growth was pushed by COVID recently, that we were seeing Twitch seeing 50 some odd percent growth from March 2020 to April 2020. I mean, that's massive. 992 million to 1.5 billion hours watched of streaming. It's a big industry. And boy,
Especially
they
in the
should
times
think
we're
of,
in right now.
and like you're saying, they should think of paying their people better because most of the partners are essentially like Uber drivers.
Yep.
They're
Independent
essentially
contractors.
yeah, contractors that they get paid. There's no taxes that come out of their money, so they got to do their own taxes later. Got to do all their own health care. They got to do all this stuff. I can tell you that there's been stories of Uber drivers that go out there and they're like, yeah, and then come to the end of the year and they're like, what do you mean I got to pay $5,000 taxes?
Right.
You know, uh, so yeah, there's a lot that needs to be done in the industry as a whole, but certainly Mixer was having some massive problems that they couldn't make growth happen when the industry was seeing massive amounts of growth, especially now Mixer did show some growth during the COVID month, but still it still ended up being a functionally 0% for the year. Now Mixer is trying to, I don't want to say the words do right, but they are closing down. So they are trying to do what they can for the streamers. Mixer partners are actually going to receive double payment for all their earnings for the month of June. I also find that odd because June's almost over, and it is for the month of June because the Embers stopped being the Embers is one of the ways that viewers can pay them. I think it's bits on Twitch. The Embers go away at June 30th, but technically the system doesn't shut down until like July 20th or something like that.
It's the 22nd, actually. It's 1 month to the day to that. It was announced on the 22nd.
Yeah, so they're being paid double for the month of June. Hopefully that's retroactive to the beginning of June, because they're going to get nothing if they continue on July. And most of them aren't sticking around anyway. They're moving to YouTube. They're moving to Twitch.
Yeah, most of the streamers that I follow have already basically opened up their Twitch page back open if that's the route they were going, and they've already been streaming most of their content already and asking. Even the same day when that announcement was made, the ones I was watching were like spamming chat like, go to Twitch, add me as a follower, follow me on Twitch, and they were already like spamming over there, which was crazy.
They even called it the Twitch over.
The Twitch happening.
It's time to do the Twitch over. And I said we'd get back to Ninja and Shroud, and as some people know, they were given a contract to leave Twitch and move to Mixer, and it was a lucrative contract. And that contract, essentially, at this time, Facebook had the option to make an offer to them, and they kind of had the right of refusal, I guess is the best way to say it, and then could take a payout. Because according to sources, they took extensive payouts. Looks like Ninja reportedly got $30 million payout. Shroud got like a $10 million payout. And it's amazing too that they did not want to go to Facebook so much that Facebook reportedly was offering them double their current contract to come to Facebook Gaming. Double. So could you imagine not liking Facebook Gaming so much that you took a $30 million pay cut or something along those lines? I mean, maybe 30 million is the whole contract, and he's already got paid some of it. So maybe the payout amount was only like, I don't know, 20 million or something like that. Right. But still, it's a heck of a pay cut to not go to Facebook Gaming. And it's probably because they absolutely saw a decrease in viewership going to Mixer. I mean, that was already shown that they had less people watching. Right. So, maybe they just figured it'd be worse going to Facebook. I heard Ninja is going to be doing YouTube streaming next. I heard he's not going back to Twitch, but his Twitch channel also got updated with Valorant, so I could be wrong on that. And we're gonna have to keep an eye on that and watch how this story develops.
Right. I mean, it's only time will tell. We'll see what happens. So, actually, another crazy news of this week: a long-awaited new game to be coming out, a new sequel or next part of it or whatever. Skateboarder fans rejoice. A new skate has been announced. EA has been flooded over the years from different fans basically wanting to have a new skate. And they said basically, I think the quote was from Cuz Perry said that because of the comments of people dissing EA for probably going to put out another Need for Speed instead of Skate, they said, you commented this into existence. And because of all the comments and all the feedback from the fans, they actually announced that they are going to have a new Skate game. The announcement came out on Twitter with a video from some of the developers, and it's very vague. It doesn't really talk about if this is going to be Skate 4 or if this is another Skate game as far as a different naming convention, but the developer said, hey, it's happening, we're working on it, and it's very early stages. It's not anything else other than the announcement has been made. Some of the
Super early.
focus, right? Some of the focus from EA and in an EA fashion is that there'll be user submitted content. Which, when you look into that, to me, what that sounds like is DLC, which EA is definitely famous for doing. So some of the feedback they said though would be included like skate parks, like custom designed skate parks, custom graphics for your skateboarding items, things like that, and then obviously DLC. So we'll see how that goes. In other news though, with that, there was another game that's still being developed. It's called Session, which is available on Steam. It's in early access, but a lot of people were taking that as pretty much the next Skate because there wasn't a Skate announcement. So that's still coming, but we'll see what happens with that one.
Did you ever see their Instagram for EA?
I didn't know.
Oh, this has been going on for years. Like, I mean, years. That every time EA would post something new on their Instagram for one of their games, regardless of what the game was, like literally regardless of what the game is, people would just comment, "Bring back Skate 4," and then people would be like, "S, K, A,
Love it.
T," and then somebody would be like, "Bring back Skate 4," and interrupt it, and like just comment after comment after comment after comment after comment for years on their Instagram saying, "Bring back Skate 4."
Well,
Uh,
it's gonna happen. It's happening. So,
yeah.
great job, everyone out there that wanted a new skate game. And I will say, trying to be a skateboarder back in my day, the controls of Skate has always been one that's the most realistic, the most user friendly for anybody that's skateboarded before. Because the actual tricks that you use, you move the analog stick in the way that the board would actually move. So that was one of the things that
User
always kind of,
friendly?
well, it's skateboarding friendly, I guess. But it would be
I think it was more skateboard realistic,
right
where Tony Hawk was more
arcade,
skateboard arcadey.
right.
Yeah.
So like flicking
Sim
your
versus
stick,
arcade.
back to front to do an ollie, or back to the top right, kick flip or heel flip, depending on which footing you're using. Like that stuff was what really grabbed me on using Skate
Mhm.
originally back on 360. And so to have a new Skate coming out, it's going to be awesome. Not to mention, having another, like, I don't know what city or whatever it may be based on, but just having another city to run around and wreak havoc on. So that's something we'll be
Yeah,
following. It'll be obviously a while before that actually comes out, but we'll have to see how that goes.
yeah, definitely that announcement, which was at the end of the EA Play Live event that they had, uh, I don't know, unintentionally stole the show.
I mean, how would they not
Because it
figure
was,
that would steal the show?
I mean, they did save it to the end, but it's still a limited audience, but it really stole the show. Their big like headliner really was the new Star Wars Squadrons game,
Right.
which looks fascinating. It looks like probably the first time they've gone back to like simulation flight in a Star Wars game since I think Rogue
Squadron
Squadron
on 64. That
on
was an amazing
64.
game.
Yeah. So you're talking quite a bit of time.
They had a
And
little
then the other
bit
big ones.
in the Battlefront games. They had a little bit of the flight going on from like you could fly a TIE fighter
Yeah,
and
but
like that.
less
But that's
sim.
but that's like
Yeah.
Battlefield style where you're just kind of flying around, but it's not really. It's you definitely want more, and just there was nothing else to it. So
Right. I think the closest on PC is, like people are going to bring up, X-Wing back in
right,
the past being one of the best. TIE Fighter actually being one of the best. X-Wing, people still liked, they
hitting the
didn't like
button
as
to
much as
do
the TIE
jumps to
Fighter
light
one.
speed was great.
Yeah. But it sounds like they're really going, basically you mentioned the Battlefront, and that's apparently where some of this came from, is they had some core people in Battlefront that, had done some of the flight stuff, and they're like, wow, we really miss like the Star Wars sim flight stuff. And they started it as an internal passion project. This isn't something like, oh, EA like put together, big old case book of like, here's how we're going to do it, blah, blah. No, these guys just started doing it and programming on the side and like coming up until they came up with something that they could show people, and it got people's attention. And so then they built a true team and actually started building it. And they have this great way, it sounds like they're going to do it. When you start the game, you don't build a character, you build two characters. You build a rebel and you build somebody on the Empire. or New Republic actually.
Right.
This game takes place shortly after the destruction of the second Death Star.
Awesome.
So it's early in the New Republic, and you have the remnants of the Empire, and you're building a character on both sides. And when you do the campaign, you're going to do a mission on one side and the mission on the other side. And it sounds like you're just going to keep going back and forth, you know, elevating both of those characters as you go. And of course, you can't have this without some good multiplayer. And
Of
they got
course.
5 versus 5 squadron multiplayer with bot flyers as additional ships, because it isn't just like 5v5, it's 5v5 humans, but then there's other ships that are also flying around at the same time to give you that big epic Star Wars battle type feeling going on.
I wouldn't be
Um,
surprised if they keep it to 5v5 as well without the extra because of esports. Can you say
mhm.
esports in a Star Wars game? That would be fantastic.
Yeah, and they probably would do a mode where it was only the 10 ships. And they said they're going to have a lot of support from this from the get-go. This is going to be cross-play from the beginning, and
Wow.
full cross-play. PC, PlayStation, Xbox, VR, all cross-play from the beginning.
Awesome.
And this is so far on current gen consoles is what's going to release on when it comes out October 2nd. We'll have to see what they're going to do with next gen consoles, of course. Uh, and just one of the parting things that I wanted to say here on top of all this is they're also trying to pay attention to some of the variety, especially when you're doing a squadron. You know, again, back to the esports, when you're talking about that, you're talking about like different people on the team having different roles.
Right.
And because of that, they have 5 different types of ships. So each side has 5 different types of ships. They're going to have the fighters, the interceptors, support, and bombers, and no, those are the 4 types I got. And maybe I missed the 5th type. Oh no, there's
Dome,
only 4 types
dome,
because there's going to
dome,
be 8
dome,
ships.
da dome, dome, da dome. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. So quick correction: it's 8 ships, 4 types on each side.
Gotcha.
Um, So yeah, and then I know there's another hotly anticipated both by us and by other people title that you've especially been waiting for.
So, unfortunately, Cyberpunk fans, the long awaited pushback on the date has been announced. Too much of our surprise, we weren't really surprised that, Cyberpunk was going to get pushed back. But the good news, there's good news and bad news, I guess. The bad news is it's getting pushed back. Date that looks to be released right now, Project City Red has said 11/19. I'll talk about that in a second. So November 19th. The good news from the article that was read though was that the new game will come with a free PS5 update, which is very convenient. So if you bought the game for one of the gen that's out right now, so PS4 or whatever, you can actually get a free update to PS5, full new graphics, full engine, everything for free just by purchasing the game on the current gen. So I thought that was interesting. But the other part of interesting of that is the PS5 portion. So they announced the release date of 11/19, and if you look back in time, when was like the PS2 release? When was the PS3 released? When was the Xbox released? So looking back through Wikipedia when searching, because I was like, that date sounds kind of familiar to me. In North America, the PS2 was released in October of 2000. PS3 was released November 11th of 2006. The PS4 was released in November 15th. As far as Xbox, November 15th, November 22nd, November 7th. So the common denominator here is like October and November, which also leads me to believe for one of two things. It could either mean maybe they have some insight that we don't, that maybe PlayStation may be releasing around that time. But the second part
Or
of that,
Xbox.
or Xbox. And the second part of that, which is interesting, which parts of that's interesting, excuse me, the part that is interesting is the fact that typically that's around Black Friday, which is also a time where many sales, many things to report and to also show out. So maybe we have a little more insight there on the release dates of the new next gen.
Yeah, and I think the other thing you talk about with the free upgrade to PS5, which is fantastic for those that don't want to go to next gen right away, they want to save a little money and wait for a sale later on. Xbox has been touting a very similar feature as well, where you purchase the game and it's mostly first party, but any third party can participate in this as well. So there might be a possibility here, especially since the big announcement last time for CyberPunk was on the Xbox stage with Keanu Reeves coming out.
Right.
And so it may very well that they take advantage of a similar feature like that on Xbox as well, where you buy it on the Xbox One, and when you get your Xbox Series X, that you just play it on there.
By the way,
side quest
real quick. If you haven't noticed, today they released a new trailer for Cyberpunk. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's pretty awesome. I don't want to really talk about it. I want you to take it in what you're saying. But it also wasn't a spoiler type trailer, which was kind of nice. They did show a little bit of like the gameplay story-esque, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of stuff that's going to really spoil anything in the future. But with that, right. Where was I going with that? There was something else I was going to say about Cyberpunk. I don't know. There was something else.
There was a lot of news that dropped on Cyberpunk in the last couple of days, so I highly recommend people go out and check it.
Yeah.
Another thing that was recently announced is that always around this time of year, give or take, a couple of weeks or so, Wizards of the Coast, the producers of D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, they do their announcement of what the new campaign setting is for the next year, that they're going to release a number of products around.
Right.
And so they announced that the new campaign setting is Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden. And this is going to be a very interesting setting that they're putting forth. It's going to be very much in the cold north, but on top of that, something's happening that is setting winter in longer than it should. The sun isn't coming up, people aren't seeing it, and it's going to be another one of their horror type themed campaigns. I was looking at some of the artwork here, and I love the artwork here of the 3 kobolds in the fur coat.
Right, that's pretty art. It's pretty
twist. Yeah, nice twist on the old meme of like 3 goblins in a trench coat type thing.
Right.
But yeah, like you're going against the Frost Maiden. The Frost Maiden is kind of this demigod that can take on multiple different forms. So they have multiple stat blocks for the Frost Maiden. In fact, actually, they said that the main campaign book that they released has the most number of stat blocks that they put in any campaign book so far.
Awesome.
They did say that the kind of their inspiration for this was John Carpenter's The Thing, which I think is brilliant.
Love it.
Yes.
I have the Thing board game as well, which is the Outpost 31. Really awesome game. If you like the trader type esque tabletop games.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing about it is they want to do a modern horror story with this. So they said that they wanted to deal with, and this is going to ring kind of familiar all of a sudden, they wanted to deal with issues of isolation and paranoia and secrecy. And it's actually funny because they started this stuff well beyond the Rona hit us, and well before the Rona. Pretty much last year they started all this, right. And they were commenting that they didn't think that they were going to quite experience it to this level because they didn't plan on being isolated like they have been in their basements. So it's really kind of helped with the creative juices on this as well. And this is the campaign setting. So while that campaign book is the first, there's a lot of products that are coming out, and both from Wizards of the Coast and from other manufacturers as well. I was watching the presentations of WizKids, who make some of the miniatures, air quotes around that one, for the game, because they have this amazing miniature. It's a construct dragon that spreads terror. And this miniature is massive. So this picture that we have right now shows this miniature with a regular size miniature on its base just to show you how
Right.
big it is.
Miniature.
It's over, yeah, right. It's over 200 millimeters long, and she even sets it down on the table, and it just thunk. It hits the table. It's got a nice plastic base, so you can see through it and see your map and your grid. Um,
For the
it
ones who
is just
are
a
just listening, it's massive. It looks like a child's toy that it's like the old Rancor from like Star Wars, like the one that we had as a kid.
Yeah, it's like this metallic dragon with like glowing shooting through the cracks, and it literally looks like it is a foot long and a foot wide, and it is just beautiful. I really recommend going out and taking a look at this.
I'm sure it'll be real cheap.
Um, it, I can scroll up and show you.
No, we're good.
The pre-order is $80 for a D&D miniature.
That's not terrible. I guess I could expect worse.
It's not terrible, except that they have several miniatures and dragons this size. So you really could get an expensive D&D game going real fast with this.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, but yeah, it's just it looks really amazing. I really like what they're doing with this whole concept. I think that another thing that they said about this is they kind of fashion this off of some of their popular modules in the past, at least for feel. For the horror side of it, they really wanted to delve into it like they did with Curse of Strahd. Extremely popular remake of the Strahd story. So they kept a lot of those types of aspects in there, but they had concerns about how the Strahd story kind of like could drag on and get a little slow in between. So they went a little bit further, and they borrowed from another popular series they have, which is actually the D&D starter set.
Okay.
And they had some adventures in there that were really quick and fast adventures, and people really loved them, and they were able to like, get a party together and through a couple of sessions really have a fun time. So they have this ability, and tell me if this rings familiar from video games, but they have a number of quests in the campaign that your party can choose what quest to go on and not have to follow quite a rigid line through the campaign, where they can go off and do these other small little subquests, very much like a modern MMO or a modern role-playing game on PC.
Right.
So while they didn't say that they borrowed from PC, I can see a lot of the familiarities there, and how it's going to be really exciting to see this and see how people incorporate and yes, homegrown, homebrew adventures probably have been doing things like this for many years, or they are very improv, just creating their ideas on the quests as they go. But this is another way that you can incorporate something into your own game, where you have a bunch of mini quests, and it doesn't mean that all those mini quests are going to be there forever. Could be that you go off on this one, and this one somebody else already did it, so that's no longer a thing for you anymore. So it could be a really interesting way of how to develop the role playing aspect, and how to change how these campaigns run.
Right. Well, I think that's what got our attention this week. At least it got mine anyway. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure to check us out on the podcast. We usually stream here live on Twitch at 8:30 on Thursdays. Typically to 9. We're running over a little bit, but you can always follow us on our Twitch pages, which is Phoennix Nova with 2 N's, and Xycia or Xycia is mine. And if you like what you heard, please make sure to follow us on Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. Or you can feel free to message us at the bottom there at the email, which is goa@sasgaming.com. Until next week, you guys have a great week, great day, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care.
Have a good one.